go-to-market, and product. We've already talked about team. So what you want to do is actually eliminate 3 of those risks before you can go out, and then you're ready. We talked a lot about team today. Now, one of the things I haven't talked, and I didn't see Jenny Lefcourt's speech from yesterday. Jenny's a friend of mine, and I don't know if she talked about sort of her experiences fundraising and biases, but I wanted to put it out there. I know you guys have a lot of hiring questions, but Satya and I were chatting yesterday, and I'm just curious, like, as you guys think about going out there and getting funding, like, what are you most afraid of? Because I just want this to be like an open, safe forum for talking about that. And I've never been, I mean, I'm too scared to ever, be a founder and go raise money. So, but I would love to hear your questions about it because, I read something yesterday, 94% of female founders who go seek fundraising experience biases. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, that's read that. But, it's hard. And I listen to a lot of feedback from our founders, especially our female founders who've raised their A round. And it's not easy. And you guys know that. I know I'm preaching to the choir. So I just thought I would open it up and find out, like, what's top of mind.
Hi, I'm Helen from Six Figures. Did you watch my pitch?
I did not. I watched some of them. I didn't watch all of them.
That's okay. Just joking. Well, I think the biggest difficulty for me is trying to know all the people, the right investors for me to talk with and to get warm introductions and to let our story be heard. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest frustration for me.
Okay. Somebody who hasn't asked a question yet.
Your presentation's been amazing. You're also really funny.
Oh, thank you. I'm usually funnier when I am not losing my voice, but thank you.
I'm Emily McDonald. My company is The Stylist LA. So we do women's contemporary clothing rentals, younger, cooler, rent the runway, basically, with better customer service. Okay. So the issue that I face is we're kind of far along. Like, I've had the company for 7 years, started as a complete side project. So we get this issue with founders where they're like, why didn't you go big? Or not founders, sorry. Investors with, why didn't you go big earlier? Or they're obsessed with Rent the Runway. Or they say...
Are you like, shut up, I don't ever want to hear about Rent the Runway?
Literally. And I'm like, we're different. Like, if you come into our store, right, we're different. Or they say that business is too difficult. So it's like, I feel like finding the people who are passionate about what I'm doing is really hard.
Right.
So I feel like I'm wasting a lot of time talking to people that are just never going to be. And I'm trying to sort through those people, but right.
You just have to keep, I hate to say it, but like keep on tracking. The people who think that way, you're not going to change. So focus on what you can control and don't worry about the stuff you can't change.
Okay. Thank you.
And keep getting intros by people who really are excited and passionate about your business.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Because there is somebody out there who it's going to resonate with. Carly and Danielle got turned down a lot.
They're great.
Yeah.
I think that a big concern for us is the questions we get from the potential investors when we don't have the runway to have the numbers that they're looking for. We're new. We don't have the data to answer those questions.
Well, maybe they're not the right investors. Are you getting them from every one of your meetings?
Well, we haven't had enough to really make a call on that.
Yeah. I think a lot of founders go through that where they walk out of these meetings like, I don't feel that they really understood what we were all about. Or the other one I get is, they said, oh, that sounds interesting. I'm going to go tell my wife or girlfriend about that. That's insulting. And that's a red flag. Don't waste your time.
Or daughters.
Yeah, or mistresses. Like, move on.
So, in addition to gender, age is also an issue.
Yeah,
right? So
I feel
if you're
you.
An older founder and you go out there, they're sort of like, I only invest in the people who just got out of college and are doing the tech thing.
Well, then they're not the right fit.
Yeah.
There's plenty of VCs with people that, we feel old, and we, not all of our portfolio companies are, in that millennial generation. We've got some people that have some gray hairs, which we really like because we all have gray hair now.
So I have one of my fears is I've bootstrapped the company today, wanted to hit certain milestones, and kind of had to do some soul searching. Like, okay, we have a VC scalable business, we could do this, or we could build an awesome $200 million company, or we could spend a $50 million company. And every now and then, my fear is like, okay, am I really, really, really committed to the $1 billion valuation, right? And so the fear sometimes comes back like, okay, maybe I could kind of be talked out of that. Maybe I could be talked into say, hey, yeah, you can build a great business at $500 million. And then that's my fear sometimes. But I had to come to that soul-searching moment, and then we decided to raise. And now it's and then do you have all the answers to the right questions? Are you fully prepared? Is your all the questions that she was asking earlier in terms of, you've got all your financials and ready to go. It's just, it's a scary process. Are you building, I guess it's like getting to the point of, are you truly building a venture scale business? Right. And then once you have decided that, you've done all the due diligence, are you fully prepared to tell the story financially, where it doesn't just look good in a spreadsheet and, I did the math, but actually tell the story and be ready for it.
And remind me, you have secured seed stage funding?
No, we're completely bootstrapped today with me working full two-time jobs and but so it's I don't know. I guess I don't know if anybody, but it's the math questions, it's the financials, it's all of that. It's just being prepared.
Yeah, and I'm not the best person to really because I'm coming at it from a talent perspective, not an investor perspective. I think Jenny or Charles Hudson would definitely have a pursue. Would probably have a much better response or probably more it's not that I have tons of empathy, but I don't feel like I can be really helpful in terms of helping you navigate that, other than I would say, get support from your current network. Because I'm sure you're not the only person feeling that way who's bootstrapping.
Go ahead. So I'll share a fear, and then I have a quick question.
Sure.
So fear is that I will be the reason that we don't get funded. That it's not the idea, but I don't have the right narrative, or I'm not meeting the right people. And then my question is, I hate sending a pitch deck because you can't articulate passion and vision and big, like she said yesterday, we want to know your big picture vision. I can't put all that in a deck if someone's like, send me your deck. So how do you I recommend that we do that, or we say, actually,
we can't. So we get 250 deals a month. We can't meet with everyone. So, and when people contact me, I once met somebody on a plane and they were trying to pitch to me. And I'm like, first of all, I don't make the, investment decisions, but I say that all the time, send me a deck. So that's our unbiased way of reviewing a deal. That's our rubric. You've got to, there has to be a level playing field.
Have you seen decks that exhibit passion? Is it possible?
There's plenty of examples of good decks and bad decks. And I will tell you, we have made 2 investments based on cold outreach. The majority of our investments are through warm referrals. But these 2 companies, they knew who we were. They understood our investment philosophy. Plenty of people send us decks without understanding who we are and what we do. We do not invest in, anything outside the U.S. We get tons of stuff for outside. People just don't do their homework. If you do your homework and you think homebrew might be a fit, send it. But if you're not going to even take the time to understand our investment philosophy, don't send a deck.
So I think general pattern recognition, I'm back here, straight in front of you. Hi. General pattern recognition is interesting. So yes, maybe we can't raise money. Is it because of me? We just closed our seed funding with it was led by Harrison Metal.
Oh, cool! Yeah, we work with Michael Deering.
Yeah, so we closed 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations, that's great.
Thank you. But you even mentioned this as a bias that you guys have. I'm actually a solo founder.
Yeah,
and
we have invested in some solo founders, by the way.
And I looked for who the right technical founder or co-founder was, but I could never find the right person. It's almost like getting married. I'm not just going to jump into it. And I actually got turned down from 2 out of the top 3 accelerator programs in the country because of this. And so I'm just curious, like now that we've raised the seed, we have people like Michael and some other big names behind us. Does that mitigate that risk, or does it just like continue through the A and B?
So I'm going to answer this a little bit differently, but not directly. But first of all, I mean, finding a co-founder has to happen organically. I get calls all the time from people saying, can you help me find a co-founder? We're not like a founder dating service. There was a company, maybe it's even still exists, founder dating. It doesn't work like that. We're not matchmakers. It has to happen organically. You got through the hard part. What may happen is, do you have a technical background?
So that's funny. I'm a chemist by training, and I did my MBA at MIT, but I have a digital product management background.
Okay. So I don't know what your ideal profile is for a co-founder, but I would love to have a follow-up conversation with you about it. So feel free to email me. We can chat next week. But who knows? Maybe you will meet somebody and you'll be interviewing them for a position, and they're going to be somebody who says, look, I really want to be because when you really think about it, like a co-founder is basically, they're getting more equity and they have more liability. Is it glamorous? Depends. Depends. So it may happen through your interview process, but you've done the hard part. You don't need a co-founder right now. Do you want somebody to have more liability? It would take some stress off you, but there's cons too. So you've done the hard part for now.
Strong head of engineering. Like our head of engineering was one of the earliest engineers on the Gmail team from 2005 and left in 2016. So it's like, he's my, right. You want the way I look at a co-founder is you want somebody who's a thought partner. When we had somebody in our portfolio, the co-founder had to move out of the country for personal reasons. And I just remember sitting there with the person who got left. And he was so sad. He's like, I've lost my thought partner. And he tried to figure out if his VP of engineering could fill that role, and he didn't. This person was a great VP of engineering, but he wasn't his thought partner. So I think it has to happen organically. But now that you did that, yes, does it make you, it makes you more desirable, but I don't think you should have to sell yourself. I think it should just happen. And maybe I'm living in some la-la land, but that's my opinion. And I'm more than happy to chat with you more about it.
Hi, Beth. Hi, Beth.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Great, and you?
Good.
Thanks so much for muscling through.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
You're under the weather, and it's phenomenal information you're giving us.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
So what keeps me up at night would be that, when you reach the point of looking at VCs or just Series A in general, is papering the deal properly, taking care of your seed round investors, taking care of your staff on that. And so, it's almost like when some people, when they go to buy a car, they're like so nervous because they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And, I'd love to go buy a car at a sporting event, right? But doing paperwork for a Series A, it feels like it's your foundation that if you potentially make a mistake here or don't do it properly, that it can affect you subsequently for future rounds, and then you're responsible for not taking care of the people that believed in you.
Well, by the time you're raising your Series A, you're in bed with your seed stage investors. So we are helping our companies each step of the way. And we may not be doing a follow-on round, but we are making the introductions to Series A investors. So we're with them along the way. Well, so that's not something that, it's still stressful, don't get me wrong. And not all of our companies get funding. But that shouldn't be that scary because we are there every step of the way. I can't speak to every other VC, but talk to any homebrew founder and they will tell you that, we are coaching them and holding their hands along the way.
I guess, we raised $1.2 million on $1 million ask from, close
Congratulations.
Thank you. On close relationships.
And was this with seed stage VC investors?
No. So now we're from South Florida.
Okay.
So not a big ecosystem there. And my partner and I are reshaping an industry.
Okay.
In the accounting space for small business
Got
owners.
it.
And so raise the money, everything's going great, and now have this phenomenal opportunity to come to this world. And when you go VC world, it kind of really changes your whole world, because when you're not VC, you're thinking, okay, do 3 rounds, 4 rounds. You're going to bring in, at some point you'll bring in some money that everybody will cash out a little bit. And now when you look at VC and you say, well, let's drive all the way. How do you know what you don't know? How do you make sure everybody's taken care of along the way? So that's,
Do you have an advisory board?
We do.
And I would I would definitely try to get somebody on your advisory board with some, investing experience who could really help you through this process.
They're all private equity. So,
but those PE folks have contacts in VC. Leverage those contacts. That's what you've got, because you've got to have somebody, with VC investing experience to help you.
Thank you.
No, the risk, that was it, and then we were on to questions. Yeah.
There's one over there. I got this one.
Do you have time for okay. I guess I just had a quick question. It's more of, it's not something I'm scared of, but just a huge challenge. And maybe I was in the wrong town, but how do I
what town?
Austin,
I need a visual.
How do I overcome the stigma of being a first-time founder? Because it's one challenge that I haven't heard expressed in this room since being here, but I am that, and yet I'm an extreme expert in my space, as well as my partner. So we relocated our company to Austin.
From where?
Well, we originally developed in the Middle East because of a non-compete that I was under with the Knot, my former employer, for many years. So we moved to Austin back in the fall because we won Capital Factory's 100K challenge. They're an accelerator and kind of tech hub in town. And we've made every one of our milestones, as far as launch, as far as traction, as far as revenue, and we're actually 85% over our projections in revenue in our early stage. At the same time, there's 2 other founders kind of closely in the network where I am, and those 2 founders have both raised their seed. They're both males. They're both third-time founders. They're both personal friends of the head of Capital Factory, and maybe that makes a difference. But we're outperforming them in every single metric. And I don't want to sound like sour grapes.
You can sound like sour grapes.
I brought on a killer CTO who's had 3 successful exits of his own. He's now also just took another part-time, he's with us full-time and now with Stanford University, head of their fund, transforming their technology side of it. So he's a killer resource, but I brought him on to alleviate that, the 2 of you are first-time founders, myself and Donna. Well, we have Jordan on board, and maybe it was Austin, people just aren't biting. I don't know, is it a real challenge, or is that more of just
so the way I
see
it, I love first-time founders. They don't have bad habits. They are more humble some of the time. But I wouldn't let that be a barrier. I think it may be more in your perception, but you don't have bad habits. And you can use that to your advantage when talking about, your experience. Somebody who's been doing this a lot longer, they kind of know what they don't know. You don't know what you don't know yet, which is actually good, because then you have no fear.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you, first of all.
Thanks for having me.
I have a tech platform, and I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on whether or not you need a CTO or a technical partner in order to go to an accelerator or for VC money. What is your outlook on that?
We've had, our companies have raised without having a technical person. Again, I'm going to use the Skim or Primary. Christina and Galen, who came from Quidsy, which was bought by Amazon, didn't have a technical background. So again, that they weren't a technical company. So, I think we've done it.
Thanks.
But are you solving a really challenging technical problem?
It's an online platform that connects event freelancers with agencies.
Okay,
and
that's
brands.
not a challenging. I mean, that's
Yeah, no.
that's a really interesting and cool problem. I would not define that as a challenging technical problem.
We're an e-commerce company at seed stage, and you mentioned don't hire people that are too experienced because they may get bored, but like don't hire junior people. Is there any like range that
in general? Again, there's exceptions depending on the company. That's what our companies tend to do. We have some companies that will hire, like I said, an operations analyst, and that person is kind of doing everything. We had one consumer hardware company in the food tech space. They ended up getting bought by Walmart.com. The product is shot. That's neither here nor there. By the way, most of our companies, that can happen. So again, it really just depends. But if I have to make a statement like that, most of our companies, whenever I get, interest from somebody that doesn't have industry experience, there's not going to be a place for them at a seed stage company. And I always refer them to my colleagues at the later stage, VCs.
Sure. The reason I ask is because we brought someone in that has experience who I think kind of got to the point of being a little bit didn't want to do as much individual contribution. And so I'm wondering if there's ways that you've found to like find the people who are going to be able to do the day-to-day tasks that just might suck a little bit in an early stage startup and they'll eventually grow. Are there like good questions that you've asked?
Behavioral interviewing. And I have a great list. Email me and I'll get it to you.
Okay. Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
Right
Where
here.
are you?
Right in front of you.
Monday. Okay.
Thank you for coming in. Would love some tactical tips and advice from your experience on two areas that I'm struggling with. One is making top candidates feel really safe with the leap that they're about to make.
Okay.
Both in the interviewing process and during the onboarding, like first few weeks. So any tactical advice there. And then second scenario is people that you're just like on the fence with because they're so good at selling themselves. You're like, is this person dishonest?
Okay.
You can't find any info with references.
Okay.
Like, try to push hard. I don't know if you have any tactical tips on that.
Can I start with number 2?
Of course.
Always trust your gut. If something seems off, it is. And I talked about back channel references. Whenever, we're helping with an executive search, we start connecting the dots. By the time a founder calls and says, hey, we really like this guy or gal, we are connecting the dots. Between Hunter, Satya, and I, we're connected with, most product and eng candidates here in New York and, anywhere. And we're asking questions at the same time maintaining the candidate's confidentiality. But we go in deep and we figure it out. We don't want to waste anyone's time. So if you think the candidate just maybe a little bit off, those little things, and that's why I said, somebody asked me about interview process. Get them out of the office. After the third interview, go have coffee. Take them to a lunch. People always say happy hour. Not everyone drinks. I don't know. And drinking is like a whole nother can of worms. So maybe just take them to coffee or lunch. But you want to see how they interact in a social setting. First question, making a candidate feel safe. So we spend a lot of time helping our founders close candidates. And we are the ones that get pulled in at the 11th hour. The candidate's considering 3 other offers from startups and, our salaries may be lower. We go back and we revisit the reasons why the candidate wanted to come, interview with this company in the first place. Whenever they're coming from larger companies, like I said earlier, they want impact and they want a seat at the table. So we basically use their own words and go back with them. So, it's very basic psychology. If they say to us in interview 1 and 2 that what they really miss is having direct access to somebody who makes decisions, and they're also interviewing at Uber, and I say, well, you're 4, levels away from the CEO, why are you even considering this offer? So, we're just really direct, and we go back and we do whatever we can. We usually have somebody on the board aside from, Hunter or Satya. We've pulled in really senior folks from our co-investors as well. We will do whatever it takes, and we've got a pretty good close rate. The ones that we lose, they weren't meant to be. It happens. But you have to, developing rapport with the candidate starts at the first interview. So I do a lot of coaching around that if there is an internal recruiter or a hiring manager who needs that kind of coaching at one of our companies. When I talk to them at the third or fourth stage of the interview and I say, well, what's important to the candidate? Do they really value equity? And the hiring manager says, I don't know. I say, well, you need to figure that out, because we shouldn't be at this point if you don't understand what's important to them. Do they have 2 kids that are starting private school next year? Because if that's the case, they may have to take a cut on the equity and take a little bit more cash. So I have to coach them on like what's important to the candidate.
Go. Beth, we just go on and on and on. Thank you so much. And it's okay for folks to email you, or I'll share the slides with them and everything else. Yeah, great. Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Oh, what is your email?
My email is beth@homebrew.co.com. And then my Twitter, somebody said my Twitter.
Yeah, Homebrew Beth, I think it was. Do you have all your stuff? Thank you so much. Okay. Great.
Got one. Thanks, Ben. No, I'm good at that.
Don't run out of juice.
Okay. How did we do today? Was it good? Great. You guys learn something? Good. Awesome. So, Demont, come on up. We'll just talk a little bit about the incubator. Jackie, have a seat. Grab a microphone. Peter, come on up. Grab a microphone. We'll talk a little bit. We've got the team here. We'll talk a little bit. So, let's see, there's a microphone. So, Demont, tell us a little bit about what it takes to qualify for the incubator. Say, I know we have 5 or 6 of the slots filled already for this next one, and then, but we're going to quickly have another class in September, October timeframe. Yep.
Maybe early.
So, maybe early. So let's talk a little bit about in 2018, who's clearing market getting into the incubator, and then we'll get into some more stuff about the incubator. But tell them a little bit about our process and people coming in early, and then the formal process, et cetera.
Yeah. So we're very much 2 things: product people. So we want to see something that you clearly are very in touch with your users. You understand your users. They love you. You love them. You're constantly getting that feedback. And our easiest way to tell that is your traction. And so typically, I would say we're looking at, like on the enterprise level, 5K MRR minimum. I would say it's heading more towards like 10K MRR plus. We have a couple companies in the incubator right now that are 80K MRR plus. And they're the ones that are having the most success in the incubator. And so that's in terms of like getting into the incubator. And then in terms of success, clearing that benchmark is important, but also showing the growth. And so the couple companies that are on the earlier side have had tremendous growth in the incubator right now. So one company went from 0 in February to 19K MRR as of like 2 weeks ago. And so they are seeing good traction as well when you grow that quickly. So it's a factor of traction and growth, or total revenue and growth.
Jackie, talk a little bit about what you've seen in the incubator since you've been here since the beginning of it, of sort of who is successful coming out of it and what results in a positive experience for people who do come to it.
For sure, it's been much later stage as you go. In the beginning, it was, I think some companies hadn't even launched yet. I think the very first product, I think, were you in the first one? That's right. Because there was the classic demo day of everyone launching their products at festival kind of thing. And then I think there was quickly the realization that the better space was companies with traction. So it's the most obvious thing is each cohort has more traction of all of the, maybe every once there's one company that's a little bit earlier stage, but almost without exception, they all do. And I think that in terms of being successful in the incubator, it's just being fully present, taking advantage of all of the investors that come through, following up in just a really positive way, and also following up at the network itself of all the incubator alums and really taking advantage of the time there and working really hard on the product throughout the 12 weeks.
Yeah, just like being present here is a good idea, being present in the incubator and looking at it as a 12-week sprint to then go meet with those investors in between the sessions. So if you meet 6, 7 great investors, getting that follow-up meeting with 1, 2, or 3 of them in between is a pretty interesting approach to the people who've been successful.
Right, and I'm not sure if have you talked about, because I may have missed it, but if the actual structure of the incubator is that 5 to 8 top tier investors come every single week and listen to all of the company's pitches. It's sort of like this, but you'll have all these investors in addition to all the syndicate members. That's sort of new. So the investor quotient is it's like all the time that you would take to try to set up meetings yourselves would it be impossible without this?
Well, that is one of the, you could get each of you here, especially the ones who were a little further on. So let's say the people who were voted 1, 2, 3. Those folks would have probably an easy time getting a meeting or 2 a week. Well, not an easy time, meetings, but you might get 1 or 2 meetings a week if you sent out 20, 30 emails. That's probably about right for companies in this stage. 1 out of 10 would get a meeting, which means in order to hit the numbers that you would hit in the incubator, you'd be sending thousands of emails. Peter, where do you sort of number the companies? What do you think is important for founders at this level to focus on?
Interesting question. Let's see, because I've been a mentor primarily in the sales and biz dev role for B2B startups for many, many years, and what I personally look for is, passion. But really just take the learnings. I saw a couple of pitches this morning which were more along the realm of just describing what your product does rather than looking at what the greater market potential was or looking the thing or communicating the things that investors are looking for. And so that's kind of the idea around Founder University is to not just give you pitch training, but what's in the pitch around what you're looking for, what the total addressable market is, what investors are looking for. So take advantage of the learnings here, hone your pitch, hone your delivery, take the feedback here to heart because it is genuine, it is extremely high value, and something that you can carry with you throughout your journey as an entrepreneur to unicorn land.
Yeah, one of the goals is obviously to make this as candid as possible. Hopefully you got to see that from the different investors Jackie was able to recruit to come out here. At the end of the day, there's a lot of feel-good talking that occurs in Silicon Valley about what we're all doing here, but I encourage you to remember that the reward system is still money, and the money still gets driven by stocks being bought by either an acquiring company or an IPO, and there being liquidity available to the investors. The venture investors are renting their space on your cap table for 10 years. They will not be there for the second 10 years in all likelihood if you make it public or get bought. They're going to hold your shares for 10 years, and they have a specific set of requirements for the capital they give you. So just know that and understand that as much as they're talking to you about the product or where you're from and your background and your philosophy and the product, at the end of the day, they're looking for that repeatable business model, that flywheel that will get going and just start printing money and become more and more profitable and result in a dominant market position for you to print money. If you can't explain to those investors how you have a dominant position and print money with a repeatable process, I think all the other discussions are kind of meaningless. So just keep that in mind. Some of you may be in that product discovery phase where you're like, well, why am I even thinking about a repeatable process? Well, challenge yourself to think, I can do both. It doesn't have to be sequential. You don't have to figure out your business model after you figure out your product. You could be figuring out your business model while you're building your product. And in fact, the best companies have always done that. They've always known exactly what their business model was. Now, you can put it off. Instagram and Facebook and Twitter all got a free pass during a certain period of history in the Silicon Valley by saying, hey, we're growing so quickly, we'll make money later. But the truth is Airbnb, Uber, Tesla, Apple, almost every Google, they all knew exactly what their business model was. Google knew exactly what the business model was. They just decided when to turn it on. You're typing something into a box. You're obviously interested in that. That's never existed in the history of advertising before, where we can match what you typed into the box to an ad. Volvo, San Francisco, used the 1990s. Like, we know exactly what you want. We can sell exactly those keywords to somebody. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully you can all navigate that. And people are looking for either a unique approach to the business model or nothing unique about it at all. Like, we take a commission and it's this amount. Sometimes it's something a little more creative than that, but generally people either pay for something with their attention or they pay for it with their wallet. And it's pretty straightforward. And if you can't figure that out at this stage, in this year, it's 2018, the stakes are much higher. There's very little tolerance for people figuring it out. If you're figuring it out, you're kind of in the unfundable bucket today. It used to be just 10 years ago, I think in 2008, most of the companies I met with would be figuring out their product. That's not now. There's 50 times as many companies. You got to be really tight. And I think we saw that, right? In the people who Monique and then Andrea, Zurich, and myself picked, they were the companies that were more fully baked in business model. We didn't have to guess how they're going to make money. We knew who their customers were. Okay, so some questions. I'm sure some people have. We'll get the microphone. We'll run them around a concise question.
So this is pretty specific, but I'm always curious about this with incubators. So if you're raising a round currently, and say you luckily get accepted to the incubator, how does that work with the round you're raising?
It's a great question. Most investors in Silicon Valley look at the incubator system one of two ways. One, it's a feeder. Great, go do it. A small number of people might look at it and be slightly threatened by it, like, oh my God, they're going to do that. And then I have to wait, and there's going to be all these other investors who are going to find out about it, et cetera. But generally speaking, if I've invested in a company and they get accepted to Y Combinator, or if I didn't launch incubator, a high-end incubator, I would be like, great, go do it. Even if the incubator is getting slightly better terms than I was, because, and we've had companies go to Y Combinator after we invested in Y Combinator would then get 6% of the company for 100, and I got 2% in that case for 100. So I'm like, oh, they're getting 4 more points than me. But they're running an incubator every week, and I'm not. I'm just getting to put my money in and walk away for those companies. So most savvy investors get that. East Coast investors sometimes don't, and they might try to block people from going to an incubator, but you got to just sort of, as the CEO, just say to your investors, I'm going to this incubator. It'll be a great experience for us. They're putting 100,000 in, so that means they're paying 1, 2, 3%, and then they're getting the other 3, 4, 5% in kind for running their incubator. And the easy calculation to make if you're going to go to Y Combinator or our program or anybody else's is, okay, they paid $100,000 and got 3%. Is the other 3% they're getting in kind for the program? Will my company be worth more than 3% more?
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
It's a very simple way to do it. Now that doesn't mean you're not going to get blocked. I literally had a female founder coming out of the last female founder university who got blocked by one of her investors, and I said, well, and this is East Coast investors who are like, I don't get it. Why do they get a better deal? And it's like, because we're running a program. Like, well, we give advice to our companies, and it's like, we're running an entire program with a staff and all this stuff.
Well, this might be a silly question, but then I guess to further that, so it just can be a part of the round, technically?
Well, you would sign a different convertible note with us or Y Combinator, and then you would just go about doing your round. And if you met people in our incubator, you'd raise at a different valuation for them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We would probably say close the round with us in the part of finish the round with us, close that, and then let's talk about what you want to do kind of through the incubator and post incubator. What do you need to do?
That was really helpful, guys. Thank you very much.
But it was interesting in this case. They were getting blocked, and I talked to the person on the phone, and I was like, oh, okay, can I ask how long you've been in the industry? And they're like whatever, he's 4 years or whatever. I was like, oh, how many investments have you done? It's like 5. And I was like, oh, any of them become unicorns yet? And no. I was like, okay, let me explain how the industry works. Like, generally this will make your investments worth more money. So if one of your companies that you invested in goes to Y Combinator, that's good for you, because it's like one of your kids getting accepted to Harvard or Yale. Like, it's good. Like, they're going to have a better life. And he didn't get that. And so then I told the founder, I was like, all right, if this person's going to block you and you're not going to, I said, I would stand up to them, just tell them you're doing it and they can sue you, or you'll pay the money, you'll buy them out. But I would just put my foot down, because then they're going to manipulate you and stop you at other points in your company. So you might as well get control of this power dynamic now. I said, or tell them, I'm going to sign with the incubator, or you can send me $1 million at a $10 million valuation because that's what it's going to cost me by not going. So if you give me the $1 million at a $10 million valuation by tomorrow, wire to me at 5 o'clock, then I take your $1 million. If not, if I don't get that wire and the paperwork by 5 o'clock and she sent the DocuSign, then on Wednesday I'm going to go, or whatever, Thursday. She got the $1 million.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. She didn't come to our program.
It was our program.
It was our program.
Wait,
Yeah,
well, I was like, I got to do some gangster shit here. Like, this is crazy. Like, the person's blocking. I said, if they want the right to block you, then make it worth it. Like, tell them like you're screwing up the company's potential. So then you step up. Which, by the way, is how it happens. Like, if you're having a down round in your company, it's called pay to play. Like, okay, the company's being recapitalized. We laid off all our employees. It's going to be a one-person company. We're starting over. We were worth 20. Now we're going to be worth $5 million. We're going to raise money at a $5 million valuation. If you don't invest, you lose your existing investment or you get crammed down. It's a kind of similar concept. Okay, let's take another question.
Hi, Jason. So, really honest answer. I was told that it's very difficult to get startup investment when you're outside the geographical proximity. Obviously, I've come here from London for 3 days to gain relationships and tons of advice. And two of the VCs that we've met were really open in saying we don't invest in businesses outside of the US. So at this stage in my business, is it likely that I would be able to get investment from American VCs? Or am I better off staying in the UK and getting more traction? Or
okay, so if you're not here, VCs don't want to get on a plane.
Fine.
Angels, slightly different.
Okay.
They might take a flyer if they really like you or the product or the traction. But generally speaking, VCs don't get on planes.
Yeah.
If they do, it would be because the performance was double what's in their backyard. So if there weren't a lot of, companies here, they would be like, okay, then I have to get on a plane. So the companies in Scandinavia sometimes get an investment if they're breaking out, like King, I guess, was one of the big ones, Spotify. But people looked at those companies and were like, wow, Spotify's numbers are incredible. They went from 1 million subscribers to 2 million in 3 months.
Yeah.
And so it was such extraordinary performance that people would cross the pond to make the investment. And it's like crossing 2 ponds, America, and then the Atlantic. It's pretty far. But some of these investors will do that if the performance is absolutely breakout. The real hack is to keep your company running wherever you are, and then move yourself and your product team here, or have 2 or 3 people here and 20.
An operations team here. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there's a little bit of like a facade approach where like we have like 10 people here and 90 people in Vienna, or we have 5 people here and 15 in Orlando doing our sales. So I think that's going to become the really interesting standard, because we're all, as investors, tired of seeing our money just get wiped out really fast and inefficiently, and companies like, yeah, you gave me enough money, it's lasted 8 months, and now we're out of business because we're operating in San Francisco and everybody costs $250,000. It's like, really? Your receptionist is $250,000? Well, she had three competing offers for the receptionist. Okay. I mean, it does happen here. It's crazy. So I think that's a better strategy. Great companies can be built anywhere. A great founder can come from anywhere. What happens to the great founders from London or Orlando when they come here? It's like some high altitude runner running at like a normal altitude. They're just killing everybody else because they had to suffer so hard in London or Orlando, and now they took like the cinder block backpack off, and they're like, oh, I'm running without 40 pounds on my back? Great, I can go faster.
Hi, Jason. As an add-on to Emily's question, so you have such a big network of investors that you can bring on as syndicates, and you know all their specific specialties. And as a founder, I find it extremely inefficient to do outreach, build relationships, and all of that. But it is built on relationships, so you can't skip that. What are some tactics to more efficiently tap into, to get connected with the investors or the funds that will truly be interested in the type of business that we've built? Is it like to hang on to a few sound bites and have kind of our angel investors see like who in our network? Like, I don't know, how do you keep track of your investor network? You're not going to take a company and be like, I'll introduce you to these 500 people.
Well, when we do the syndicate, we email 2,500 people now the deal memo. So we actually do that quite literally. Like, we'll email them Cafe X, here's how much we're investing, would you like to invest with us? So the syndicate now has 2,500 people in it. And you may or may not have read about the Dodd-Frank Act, which came after the financial crisis and the Great Recession, to put in like some guide rails to make sure the economy doesn't get flipped on its head again. So luckily, Trump has taken all those guide rails off, so we can really risk it again. But one of the great, he's my favorite president because now we've gone from 99 people in an SPV. He expanded it to 250 people. So something good happened in the Trump presidency. So that's going to change a lot. You're going to see like AngelList syndicates and ourselves be able to have 250 investors in your company, but we get one signature. Networking and having, I always tell founders, if you can raise money from great investors at a reasonable valuation, take the money. And you heard the hors d'oeuvre metaphor yesterday, like when the hors d'oeuvres come by, grab one because you don't know when they're going to be around next. If you can get money from a great investor, just take it. Don't over-optimize. Because once you collect them, they start opening up more and more doors. So there are two types of investors in Silicon Valley, ones who make their own decisions and one who make decisions based on outside influence. There are, in fact, firms that just are specifically set up to follow Sequoia benchmark and try to do the Series B or Series C of whatever they invest as Series A in, which is a good strategy, obviously. They're drafting. Same thing happens with their Series A firms that will look at certain seed firms like Homebrew or Freestyle or Launch, and they'll just follow them, right? They'll look at their deal flow very intently. So, yeah, I think it's getting those celebrity investors or well-known, successful ones very important. And there's a lot of different ways to network them and get to know them, but one of the best things you can do is look at people who invested in similar companies to yours and then build relationships with them. So if somebody came to me and was like, I want to create a hardware tracker for health, I'd be like, well, who invested in Fitbit? Because that's public and it's been around for over 10 years. Those investors have liquidated their positions in all likelihood. They're not on the boards anymore. But they made, $10 million off their Fitbit investment or $25 million off their LinkedIn investment. Now they understand these other businesses. So a lot of that occurs where you can look for the people who made money on the business model or the previous iteration of your software. Peter, what do you think in terms of networking with the top investors? What have you seen work?
Well, the way I like to look at it is it's a strategic enterprise sale. So you really need to know as much about your customer, who the investor is, as much as you can. So like Jason said, understand where they've invested before. If you're a life sciences company, you're not going to go to a e-commerce marketplace investor to do that. I see this happen time and time again where entrepreneurs are going to investor A and say, here's my pitch, will you invest? They don't really do the homework to determine whether this is the right kind of investor from just a general thesis standpoint, not to mention, other, things that come into play. We only do early stage, or we're only late stage, or this is our wheelhouse. So just know who you're dealing with up front as much as you can, because information and knowledge is power. So it gives you more control over how you message your startup or your idea or product or whatever it is. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this, is there are tons of demo events all over the landscape, or especially here in Silicon Valley and then other centers like New York and all that, but especially here in the Valley. So I kind of coach entrepreneurs and founders and startups that I'm mentoring is do as many demo pitches as you can, because you never know that golden investor is going to be in the audience who happens to see you and then say, wow, that's cool, and then they'll come up and talk to you after. So, I mean, that's to the extent you have extra time in the evenings to go to all these meetups and stuff. So that's another avenue. But, nothing is a substitute for doing the homework and knowing who you're dealing with and making sure it's the right fit for you.
Those demo events, Peter's right. Like, it's a great thing to do. We've had people, because we're so good at pitching inside the incubator, and people get so good at it because they do it 12 weeks in a row and watch themselves on the video cameras, they wind up going out, and it's like sending your mutant children to go into wrestling matches with non-mutants. I feel like Professor X. They go out and I'm like, that's just not a fair fight. It's like Wolverine or something is going into the cage match, and literally our team goes out and they win every competition because they're so good at presenting. And then they pick up 25K, 100K checks. And they come back to the incubator the next week and they're like, yeah, I picked up another 25, picked up 50K, non-dilutive financing. I won this, I won that. So it's pretty hilarious. And, you know, you can kind of figure out what plays in those spaces, like anything that's got a feel good to it, you know, or that's personal, that will sell, sure. But yeah, you can get a reputation for just being a great speaker, commanding presence, focused, motivated, high quality product, concise pitch. That's very helpful, I think.
And then another question is when you do have an opportunity to chat with an investor, whether it's, you know, after a panel event that they've done and you're kind of the first one. This is a hack of mine. When I always sit in the front row. Okay, so, and when I'm talking or when I'm watching a panelist, I always make it a point, I'm the very first one to go up and talk to the person, he or she, and to get the business card. I remember doing this with Ron Conway. He brought one business card, and I got it. You know, so which didn't amount to anything. But again, it's just kind of a hack. But the other thing is how you carry yourself when you have that first meeting with them. Don't start going immediately into pitch mode. Okay. You're questioning them. You're evaluating them. They want you as much as you want them. Okay, so the idea is, you know, what's your investment thesis, or, you know, what types of companies do you like to invest in, or what represents your ideal? Ask those open-ended questions to get them to speak and open up more so that you know about them, and kind of play it down. You know, just go and tell them, hey, here's what I do, and blah 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 blah. You know, before you even know what they're all about or anything. So I always kind of play it down. I mean, you know, like I always put my when I write in the name, I always put the company name on here, and don't even volunteer it. Then they'll, you know, just you ask them about what, and they'll go, okay, well, what is your thing all about? That's, you know, when you're invited to talk about it, then you start talking about it. Okay, so you know, carry yourself with confidence. You own the keys to the kingdom, not them. Okay, and then a point I want to clarify about what Jason said earlier. Yes, it's about the money, but the money is not the end game. Okay, the money is a milestone, and all it does is increase your profile and increase your risk, you know, for delivering against that money. So just be careful about the money, you know, about thinking that you've arrived because you've gotten a big funding round now. No, what you've done is you've given yourself a much higher risk profile for delivering against the expectations of those investors and the community at large, who's going to, you know, benefit from, you know, you reaching the status that we all hope you reach.
Okay, another question. Who's got the microphone? Oh, yeah. Jackie's got it. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. Wrap it up. Okay. Lightning round.
So, for those who do not get into the incubator, right? Because you have only one
not
opening.
Yet.
Not
maybe
yet.
two.
Exactly. One, maybe two. I feel that one of the things that are really helpful for a lot of us in this group is to have great advisors, right? Going to somebody who can help you in either investment or in some other areas. What are your recommendations, Jason? How can we go and contact with
you
great
handle
advisors?
This with a lot of our folks. What do we advise now? I have some broad strokes, but I'm curious what you advise, what you did. Yeah.
In general, we're pretty anti-advisors. Advisors are typically fall into two camps: investors that don't want to put money in you, or people that like haven't had much success. So I guess it depends. If you're looking for advisors to put up in your deck, that is where we feel. No. This is more like.
No, let me rephrase the question. I mean, it's not to put into my number. It's a, you know, like your advisor just gave, right? That's very unique. That's very interesting. That helps. When I'm first-time advisor, first-time entrepreneur, my expertise is data fields. I can solve those problems, but maybe I'm not so good at looking at investors or at asking the right questions.
So a lot of the great information is already out there on Brad Feld's blog, my podcast, Fred Wilson's, Mark Suster. There's a million pieces of advice out there. And if you start reading all the books and reading all the blogs and listening to podcasts, you'll be able to get an amalgamation of it for free. I do think having mentors is fine. It's a great thing. Advisors can be okay, but to Demont's point, like, they're not going to become the make or break it part of your business. If you want to give somebody 50 basis points or a full point for being an advisor for 2 years or 3 years. Just have it vest monthly, and then have a frank discussion and put into the advisor agreement. And these advisor agreements are all over for free on the internet that you could use, or you can get your attorney to do them. Put exactly, explicitly what the person's going to do. This is going to be for 10 hours a year, 1 hour a month, 12 hours a year total of in-person meetings to talk about business. Could happen over lunch, whatever, but there's a 12-hour per year in-person meeting and unlimited emails, whatever. You just give some broad strokes as to what it's going to be, because that's one time when there's animosity sometimes where somebody is an advisor, they help the person out, and the founder feels like they're getting a great deal. Then the company breaks out. The founder feels like, oh my God, I gave them too much equity. And if it's vesting monthly, both parties can walk away from it. But there are some people who get super involved with the advisor page on their slide deck. And it's like, okay, but what about your customers? Like, stay focused on it. So 2 or 3, you know, it can help you. Don't put people as advisors who are not advisors.
I saw that. You tweeted that, didn't you? Yeah, that's happened to you a couple of times.
Yeah, this time it happened. Somebody built an advisor page of like 6 of the highest profile investors in Silicon Valley, and like it was because they came to an event like this and they're like, Jason's an advisor. But then somebody's like, oh, I'm investing in this fund you're an advisor to. I'm like, I'm not an advisor to any funds. They're like, what about this fund? I was like, no. And they sent me a deck. It had like a big picture of me, advisor. The guy's not running the fund anymore. But I basically had to say to the kid, like, listen, because he sent it to 100 people. This is called securities fraud. So you've committed securities fraud. And then he didn't change it. Then I tweeted it. Then he changed it. And I was like, note, don't do this. All right. One more? Okay.
Jason, yesterday when at the end of Jenny's presentation, you had made the joke about the 2 of you being working class VCs.
Yeah.
And saying,
working VCs. Yeah.
Or working VCs, sorry.
VCs who still come to work.
Yeah.
I'm an angel, but yes. She's a VC who still comes to work.
And you had said like how there are a lot of individuals like who are already have left town for Europe for the summer and so forth.
Yep.
Do you have any concern about bringing in that top talent for this next cohort? Being that many of them are kind of traveling in this time of year?
No.
Or do you already have that all locked down?
Got it locked up already.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great.
We got all the working class VCs. Then in September, we get the non-working VCs. No, it's going to be occurring over whatever 4-month period. But so for the summer, it won't be a problem. I mean, people do come back for 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know that they go away for 12 weeks consecutively. I do know they go away for, based on their Instagrams, they're away for 12 weeks a year, for sure. Hands down. I just know from talking to them. Well, this has been great. I hope this has been helpful to all of you. Jackie, did you have a highlight in terms of the content? What did you think we did really well this time? What worked?
Oh boy, you're asking me the hard questions.
Right into the microphone, Jackie.
I know, sorry.
Which she says to everybody. Just get right up on that microphone.
That was a deliberate move on my part. I think it's. I mean, I'm always amazed by the talent in the room, and I'm just every time I think the founders can't get any cooler, like the group is just amazing. So it's really about you guys. Honestly, it's been wonderful to meet all of you. What an amazing group of founders. I don't know. I mean, I think we have a pretty good template. So I try to keep some of it the same, change it up every time, just trying to bring in cool new speakers every time, change it up a little bit. And I think it worked pretty well. I don't have a highlight yet, except for meeting everyone here. But cool. On that note, I'm going to send out a survey, and I really, really urge everyone to fill it out because that's super helpful. So, like, I didn't really like the speaker that much. I really like the speaker. This is what I learned. That really helps us improve the program as we go.
We don't need dud speakers.
No.
That's good. No duds, right?
I don't think
a little bit of something from everybody. That's good.
So. Yeah. Awesome. So can I couple housekeeping things? So survey, please. I'll send that out after tomorrow because some of you, I still owe everyone an email details tomorrow. Just be prepared to be at Pier 71 by 9:15. 70
or 31?
41. That's right. It'll be in your email. 71. Wow.
Wait. Which one? I heard 71, 41, and 21. Somebody tell me.
It is. I think it's 41. Yeah, you'll get You'll get the email. Don't worry about it.
Pier 41.
The most important thing is:
Pier
is there anyone here who did not tell me they were going that now wants to go? Email me if that's the case. Okay, I'll just send around all the information to everyone, just assuming everyone is going, even though they're not, because I don't want to miss anybody. I don't want the ferry to leave and you haven't gotten there.
Well, everybody has your phone number too if they need to text.
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
Great.
There are several going there and several coming back, so you won't be like stranded in the ocean or anything like that.
No, Angel Island is open all day.
Yeah, I've actually never been there. So
it's my first time there too.
Sure,
go just scream it out.
Yep.
Three different
there are going to be
hikes.
several levels.
There's absurdly easy, which I would qualify as a stroll.
There's
kind of like walking to the bathroom,
right.
And then the front desk, and then back to your seat. So that's one. That's the stroll.
The non-hike. That's just like looking at the seals.
There's literally a non-hike.
There's literally a non. I think it's just there's several.
I think it's
levels.
literally half mile, 2 mile, which is probably way less than most people can.
There will be a no walking option. I mean, some folks may not want to.
You can take a shuttle too. If you want to do nothing, you can do nothing.
Okay, that's good.
But that would be lame. I will not judge you if you do nothing.
This is not a competition. Everything
Not
is
a competition, but I'll be on the 2 mile hike or the 4, whatever the longest is. So.
Everything is a competition with Jason.
Absolutely. It's a zero-sum game. But it's going to be fun, I think, tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are 2 people who are going from Tiburon, and I have to follow up with you guys. The problem is that you guys are going to get there 15 to 20 minutes later than we will, so I have to talk to you guys about it.
You'll find us.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if there's phone service there or not, but I assume there is.
I don't know either.
Pretty sure there is. Quickly, yeah.
Question on another note. I mean, it has been amazing, these 2 days of experience, so I think everybody learned a lot, and it was super cool to be pitching in front of you and getting feedback.
Super cool.
And but one of the really most valuable things I think has been like getting to know all these amazing women that many of us
we had some women turn out this time.
We're speaking the same language and we are going through the same problems and challenges, etc. So I think I don't know if you've thought about some forum, because I mean I would love to stay in touch with many of you, and there were some people that I haven't really met yet, and
we have a female founder face group, right? From the first female founder.
The first one, we could.
You just add everybody here to the second one. That would be easiest.
And I'm also going to send around the contact sheet with everyone's info on it. I'm assuming everyone is okay with having all their contact. Basically, I think I'll just name, email, maybe LinkedIn profile or something, whatever you guys are comfortable with.
Social security number, PIN number.
Exactly.
None of that stuff.
Right.
Presenters, you're on your own.
Well, yeah. I think we'll be putting up the slides. We'll create a special URL for the website.
First name at company name. I'm sure that's them.
So what else? So we have like a little happy hour reception thing.
Yeah.
Is anyone from? Really want to obviously huge thank you to Wilson Sonsini for.
But they're not in the room right now. But we'll give them a round of applause anyway. They're pretty great. Yep.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right,
great.
everybody.
And we want to take a group picture.
Okay.
Before we break,
everybody
just because not everyone will be there tomorrow, so we want to make sure we get a picture. It's a little complicated, so we have to move this stuff aside.
We'll move some stuff here, and then everybody will come up and stand here.
Was that it? Was there anything else?
I think that's it. Let's give a big round of applause to Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie for doing all the work.